Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Fem Naruto Fell in Love with Prince of Desert Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. I'm a boy. Naruto blinked her eyes and gaped at the boy. There was no way in hell that he was a boy. He acted more like a girl than Sakura, and that's saying something. She pinched herself, hoping it was a dream. What's the wrong with the world? Now, hot guys look like girls. What's next? Her father being the Hokage. The boy giggled at her and the blonde flushed in embarrassment. She rubbed the back of her neck and wondered if she was stupid for not realizing it earlier. It's embarrassing for her not to realize that he's a boy. His eyelashes and long hair made him seem like a girl. She watched him as he left her in clearing. This was probably one of the worst days in her life, and she had a lot of bad days. It's time for breakfast, dope, Sasuke said, snapping her out of her thoughts. The blonde grinned at him and asked, "Did you come here because you're worried about me? I knew that you cared about me." She grinned. "Is it possible that you've a little crush on me?" The raven-haired boy blushed before scowling at her. "Why the hell would I've crush on you?" he yelled. "I mean, you're so sarcastic and you never." The blue-eyed girl grinned at him, her eyes twinkling with mirth. "Oh come on, how can't you not have a crush on me?" She wiggled her eyebrows. "I'm after all the most beautiful girl in our whole village. Aren't you full of yourself?" Sasuke said, staring wearily at the smiling blonde. "I don't see you denying the fact that I'm the most beautiful girl in our village." Naruto smirked. "Not that I blame you. Who wouldn't like my beautiful blonde hair and dazzling blue eyes?" The blonde gave a mock scowl and said, "I take offense to that. I'm not vain and you know it." Sasuke smirked. "Keep insulting me and I'll tell Sakura and the other fangirls about your hiding places." Naruto said nonchalantly. "I'll also have no problems about telling them that you would love to go on a date with them." "You wouldn't dare," he snarled. "Try me," the blonde said, grinning at him. "I mean, what do I have got to lose? Tell them and I won't help you escape from those fanboys of yours." "Fair enough," Naruto said, shrugging her shoulders at him. "I definitely need your help with them." She scowled. "I curse at them and yet they wished to date me. What's wrong with them?" "I agree with you, Sasuke Tem," Naruto said, grinning at him. "I'll never understand them and I certainly don't want to become like them. The day I become a fangirl is the day that you have a crush on a girl." "I guess then you're going to become a fangirl," Sasuke mumbled. The blonde looked at him in shock. Did her teammate just admit that he has a crush on a girl? Who's the girl? She must be one hell of a girl to get her teammate to have a crush. She rubbed her chin and tried to think about who the girl might be. Was it Hinata? No, the two of them aren't compatible. Ino? No, Sasuke hated the girl with a passion. Sakura? No, her teammate didn't care for their teammate like that. She curled her hair and sighed. The only way for her to know now is to ask him about who the girl is. "Sasuke Tem, who's the girl that you have a crush on?" The blonde pouted at him and cried. "Come on, why won't you tell me? I'm your friend and I'll definitely know a way for you to win the girl's heart." "No, at least give me a clue," she said, pouting him. "Is it a girl that I know?" She frowned. "Please tell me it's not one of your fangirls." He scowled at her and said, "Of course, it isn't one of the fangirls. You know damned well that I'll never date them." "Well, you did mention that you'll never give me a compliment, but you did," she pointed out, "so it's only reasonable for me to think that you might have a crush on them." "The girl I like isn't a fangirl, Naruto. The girl I like is," he trailed off and his face started to turn red. The blonde leaned towards Sasuke and the older boy's face turned even redder. Why the hell does he always seem to behave like this? Is he getting sick? This reminds her of the time that Iruka made her take him home. Well, whoever the girl is, I'm sure she's one lucky girl. Naruto said, grinning at him. "After all, you're one of the most eligible bachelors in the village, or so your fangirl says. He looked at her and she was taken back by the foreign emotion in his eyes. She had seen him direct that look to her before. The last time she had seen it was a few days before his family died. Now that she thought about it, their friendship started to fade after their death. However, thanks to them being in the same team, this was no longer the case. Come on, bastard, I'm starving. She grinned. I haven't eaten anything since last night. And whose fault is that? He spluttered. Well, it's certainly not my fault. Naruto said. It must be your fault because you've stolen all the food. Are you saying that I eat a lot? I'm not saying, I know. She said cheekily. I mean you've got big belly. Are you exercising Sasuke-tem? He shook his head at her and for a moment, Naruto swore that she saw a little bit of the old Sasuke. Maybe, the boy wasn't that lost and just maybe she'll get her friend back. She wasn't a fool. She knows he will never be the Sasuke that she knew and cared for, but this didn't mean that she didn't hope. Last one to the house is a rotten egg. Naruto yelled as she ran towards the house. Dope. The next morning Kakashi, Sakura, and Sasuke all were gearing up to go to the bridge while Naruto slept on. Kakashi stared at the sleeping blonde and sighed as she turned over the futon. He knew that it would be best to leave her here since she had spent the whole night training. Out of the three of them, only Naruto would push herself to her limit. Goodbye. Please take care of Naruto. Kakashi said as he turned his head to look at Tsunami. She's pushed her body to the limit and I doubt that she'll be able to move today. Tsunami glanced at the blonde, who seemed to be twisting and turning in the futon. Her face was beaded with sweat and the crunching of her face along with the whimper, gives Kakashi an idea that she wasn't having a good dream. I didn't mean to kill you. Naruto whispered so quietly that only he could hear it. He frowned and remembered that the young girl had her first kill a few weeks ago. He felt guilty for not talking to her, but with the training and everything else, it had slipped his mind. It's time for us to go. Tazuna yelled, reminding him that they're in a tight schedule. The sliver-haired man took one last glance at his student before leading Sakura and Sasuke to follow Tazuna. He just hoped that it was the right decision. Hey Tsunami-san, where's everybody? Naruto asked as she walked into the living room. The young mother looked up from her stitching and was taken back to see her standing there. The blonde shrugged her shoulders and leaned against the wall as she waited for the woman's response. Oh, your sensei said that you should rest. The young woman didn't even finish her sentence when Naruto ran up the stairs to get change. She listened in befuddlement as the young girl rant about idiot senseis and teammates that should think before they do anything. It wasn't long before the young girl was in the living room in her changed attire. Thank you for watching over me, Tsunami-san. The blue-eyed girl said, grinning at her. I'll be going to my idiot sensei that didn't even bother to leave me a note or wake me up to tell me this. Naruto frowned and closed her eyes. There was something wrong, she could feel it in the air and in her gut. She had always trusted her instincts and this was no different. It also didn't help that she could also sense a foreign chakra coming this way. Something tells her that it might be best if she stays with them and watch over them. It will be in her conscience if these two innocent people get hurt, and Naruto already felt enough guilt to last her lifetime. Should she stay and guard them or does she go after her teammates? Logic says that she should stay and protect them. After all, it was only reasonable, but another part of her wanted to go and be with her teammates. Looking at the two of them, Naruto made her decision. I just hope that sensei and the others will be alright without me. Kakashi sneezed and grunted. Was he getting cold because of the climate? No, the most likely thing was that someone was thinking about him. Probably Naruto if she had woken up. The young girl wouldn't like being left in the house, but he had done it for her own good. He glanced at Sasuke, who seemed to be very focused, but he can tell that the boy was concerned. It had been very easy for him to see that the boy was very close to Naruto. If he didn't even know better, then the boy may have a crush on the girl. It would be amusing to see the boy trying to win Naruto's heart. The blonde was utterly clueless about boys, so the Hokage had told him. He shook his head and looked at the bridge. He froze at the sight in front of him and started to mentally curse in his mind. The laborers who had been working side by side with Tazuna were all sprawled out on the structure they were working so hard to complete. What's this? Tazuna yelled as he ran over to the fallen laborers. His face was scrunched in shock as he stared at the scene in front of him, and Kakashi had a feeling of what had happened. They stood there as the old man cradled the one of the fallen laborers' head against his chest. The man was barely conscious, his face was bruised and his lips were bloodied, which made Sakura to gulp at the sight of blood. Sasuke kept a cool facade, but Kakashi can tell that it had shaken him. What happened? Tazuna asked the barely conscious man. A monster, the man wheezed. Can it be? Kakashi thought, looking at the area around them for any clues of what might have happened. He had a suspicion about what might have happened. No, he knew what had happened, but he wanted to be certain that it was true. He could feel the mist becoming thicker, and it dawned to him that Zabuza and his helper might be here. Here they come. He alerted his two students. Slowly, he reached for kunai in his bag and watched approvingly as the other two did the same thing. Quickly, he put his hands into a hand sign and pursed his lips as the mist started to thicken unnaturally. Kakashi-sensei, this is the Kurigakure no Jutsu, right? Sakura asked, looking at the bridge with fear and worry. The pink-haired girl didn't forget about what had happened. Long time no see, Kakashi. A voice chuckled from within the newly formed fogbank. Yeah, and we haven't missed you. No eyebrow freak. A familiar voice said. Kakashi and the other whirled around, surprised to see a familiar blonde smiling at them. Well, that's something boss would say. The Bunshin said. She would have also said that you're a damn idiot to come back here again and that you've no guts. The man spared the Bunshin a dismaying and slightly confused glance. What? Must I repeat myself? The Bunshin cried in distress. You're an idiot to come back here. In fact, you're an ugly moron to work for an evil man like Gato. Honestly, why work for a man that has a name that means cake? Makes it seems like you got no honor in you. Kakashi put his head in his hands and groaned while Sakura looked at the Bunshin in disbelief. How the hell can she act like this at a time like this? The pink-haired girl asked Sasuke. Out of all us, I would have thought that Naruto would at least have some sense. I don't know what goes through her mind. But anyways, I should disappear now. The Bunshin said, setting her hands into a seal. I've done my job, so I should go and report to the boss before she blows a fuse. Kakashi's hand latched onto her arm, preventing the Bunshin from dismissing herself. Wait, he ordered lowly. Not yet. Gather more information before dispelling, so that the original will have a better idea of what to expect. The Naruto's Bunshin slowly nodded and sat back into a ready stance. A ring of Zabuza's water clones appeared and ensnared the group, each shouldering a sword. Looks like you've been expecting us, one of the clones sneered. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's alright, you're forgiven, eyebrow freak. Naruto's Bunshin said pleasantly. Thanks to you, boss and the others were able to have a tea party without any interruption, isn't that right, Sasuke? The boy smirked at the clone before running towards the horde of Mizu Bunshin. Kakashi glanced at the Bunshin, who stood there in boredom as she watched the boy destroy the Bunshin with slashes of metal. It was a surprise to see that Naruto had been smart to put a Bunshin here. He had expected her to come here, but she had exceeded his expectation. I would give that a 6 out of 10. The Bunshin commented. If he was less flashy then maybe he would get a 7, but he wouldn't be the 10 without being flashy. Another chuckle emanated from the mist. Standing behind the Konoha shinobi was Momochi Zabuza and his young helper. Naruto paced back and forth as she waited to hear news from her cage Bunshin. She had decided to send them to inspect the area to see if there was any clue about who might be attacking them. Her eyes flinched as an image flashed through her mind. She closed her eyes and took the time to look at the tree marks that her clone had seen. At a glance, they seemed to be ordinary marks, but at a closer inspection, it appeared to her that it was a weapon's mark. From the length of the slashes, the blonde deducted that it was a sword mark. She used to be so enthusiastic about weapons, going to the point about describing the differences between each weapon. It used to be her dream to have a sword, but of course that never happened. She just had to save her from them. She couldn't have saved her own life. No, she just had to be so goddamn noble. Another image flashed through her mind, but this time, it was an image of a boar that had been sliced up. She tilted her head and frowned. It seemed that the boar had the same marks on it, and by the length and width of the slashes, it seemed that the same sword had slashed it. She shook her head and tried to rack her head as she remembered how her clone had looked down to the ground. The footsteps were distinctive in the soft soil, thank goodness. From the depth, length, and width of the indentations, she could tell that one was of average height and build. The second set of tracks spoke of a man that was slightly larger than the first. This wasn't good in any way. I could have been a doctor like the old bat had suggested, but no, I had to decide to become a shinobi. Naruto whined as she ran towards one of the trees. I swear, if it wasn't for the payment and for that damned promise, then I wouldn't have become a shinobi. It just has too much work. She leaned against the tree and scanned the area for her target. It wasn't that hard to spot them. For being killers, they sure were loud. Honestly, her grandmother could hear them because of the racket they made. She narrowed her eyes at the two men and motioned for her bunchen to be positioned into ambush. Her theory about their appearance was right, but she hadn't expected that the two of them would be carrying a sword. It just made her original plan to be wrong, but that's all right. She will just go to Plan B. Plan B will be just charge right in. An idiotic idea, but hey, she wasn't that smart. What is your business here? Her clone demanded, causing Naruto to slap herself on the forehead. I just had to have an impulsive clone. Naruto muttered, glaring at her clone. At least the clone hadn't used the bratty tone, because if she did, then Naruto would have thrown her shoe at her. Our business, one of the men parroted. Well, after we kill you, we'll kill Tazuna's family, mop up of what's left of Zabuza and Kakashi and collect their bounties and be on our merry way. Naruto clenched her hands at this, and it was taking all her willpower not to punch the tree. She'll be happy to murder them because they're just assholes. You're an asshole, her clone said dismissively. And a loser. I doubt that you even have honor. I wonder, how can you be sure that your friend wouldn't betray you? We have been together for such a long time. But I heard that there's a lot of money being offered. Naruto's clone said offhandedly. I mean, if it's me, I would kill you just to get all that money. After all, it's a lot of money. Are you sure that he won't betray you? Of course not. The blonde clone flickered her eyes at the large man and rubbed her chin while the real Naruto stared at him. There was hesitance in the man's eyes, and the blonde was certain that her theory was correct. There's no real honor between them. It seems like your friend seems to have the same thoughts as me. Her clone said cheerfully. Tell the bitch that she's wrong. The man spat to his friend. The friend hesitated, but it's all that was needed for the man to start to argue with his friend. Slowly, Naruto motioned for the rest of her clones to attack them while she, herself, watches them to analyze their attacks. I have been there for you. Well, she raised an interesting point about the money. You honestly were thinking of. Of course not, but still. The blonde leaned against the wall and frowned in disappointment as her clones kicked them in the head. Maybe, she shouldn't have gotten to argue about money, but then again, she wouldn't have her amusement of hearing them argue. Besides, it was just too troublesome too. I'm starting to think like Shikamaru. Naruto whispered in horror. I got to spend less time with him. The blonde sighed and decided that it would be a good idea to check up on Inari and his mother before heading to the bridge. It'll be best if she knew if they're safe before going to them, or maybe, she could create a couple of clones to be with them. She rubbed her chin and nodded her head. A couple of clones should be with them in case of attacks, and fortunately for her, her clones have some aspects of her personality. They will be able to use their heads to protect them while she goes to the bridge. Meanwhile, on said bridge, Kakashi was busy handling Zabuza again while Sakura guarded Tazuna, and Sasuke was currently facing Haku in what seems to be a dome of mirrors. Naruto's clone had dispelled a while back when a kunai had hit it in the stomach. Sasuke didn't want to admit this to himself, but he needed help, and the only one that he knows that can help him was Naruto. As much as he wants to deny it, the blonde was very capable when she puts her mind into it. However, she can be quite stupid at the same time. She could be quite annoying as well. After a few deep breaths, Haku seemed ready to begin their dance anew, before a loud voice broke through to the two young shinobi combating each other. "It's so nice to see that you're getting the crap beaten out of you," the voice said sarcastically. "I wonder, do you want me to help you? Or are you going to be a big baby and say that a real man doesn't need any help?" "I don't need your help," he yelled. "Sure, and my mother is the queen of the fairies," Naruto said sarcastically. "And you aren't a revenge-ridden boy. Wait a second, you are. So that means you need my help." "I don't need your damn help." "Sure, and my grandmother is the Hokage," Naruto said mockingly. "Now, Gukaku to the east and don't be lazy." He frowned and racked his brains to see if there was any meaning to it. He shook his head as he realized what the blonde was planning to do. Sasuke formed the hand seals and aimed his mouth at the top mirror, focusing as much chakra into his chest as he dared. Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu. A highly intense fireball surged from his lips, between his fingers. Fuden. Daitapa. A harsh gust of wind flew down onto the ice dome, swirling with the flames. Sasuke glanced at the blonde, who was now frowning in disappointment, and he wondered why the girl was disappointed. She had been able to help him melt some of the mirrors. "If I was the enemy, where's the most likely place I'll hide? If I'm not on the east, then I'm least likely to be on the west," Naruto muttered as she walked over the mirrors. She put her hands in the mirror and wrinkled her lips. From the memories of the clone, the boy was incredibly fast and appears to be smart. These mirrors weren't normal, that much Naruto was certain. It was made of ice, and the clone had given her an idea that it's a Kekkei Genkai, but like any jutsu, there's a weakness. Question is, what's the weakness? Naruto, think if you're able to do this jutsu, what will be its weakness? Naruto asked herself, wincing at the sight of her teammate getting stabbed by the Senbon. It needs incredible amounts of chakra control, that much can be certain, but what is its obvious weakness? It looks inescapable, but it isn't. Damn it, Naruto. I need some help here. Sasuke yelled grudgingly. I don't have enough chakra. Enough chakra. Of course, the Senbons and the Dome of Mirrors, they all require chakra control and lots of chakra. She nodded her head and looked at her pain-ridden teammate, who was in a lot of pain. Sasuke, you need to wear him out, Naruto yelled. These mirrors require huge amounts of chakra, and it won't be long before the guy is tired. Oh, thank you, Captain Obvious, but how I barely have enough chakra. Stop your whining and do as I said before I tell Ino and Sakura about your undying love for them. He growled at her, and Naruto rolled her eyes, deciding that it would be a good idea if she goes into the dome. Honestly, she gives him advice and he complains. What's with boys and complaining? She shook her head and made her way to the dome. Happy now that I'm here to help you, Naruto whispered in his ear. You idiot. Why, you ungrateful brat. Both had to dodge as a barrage of Senbon came flying at them. I am sorry, but it is time I end this. The helper began going from mirror to mirror, making it hard for either to keep up. It was only until Sasuke saw another barrage of needles heading towards Naruto that he did something he never thought he would do. He pushed her out of the way and took the hit for her. Naruto looked up at Sasuke and saw he was riddled with needles and had a slight smile on his face. You idiot. Why did you do this? You know damned well that I can take care of myself. Honestly, dope, I don't know why, my body sort of moved on its own. Sasuke admitted. I can't die here, and I still need to kill my brother, Naruto. And Naruto, I want to tell you that with that, Sasuke stopped moving, leaving a silent Naruto holding the last Uchiha. Another friend had died on her. Another friend had died to protect her, and Sasuke had died the same death that she had died. She couldn't face anyone because of this. She could barely face her best friend, older sister, who still blamed her for her death. How can she face the village? He didn't need to die for her. Your friend died like a true shinobi, protecting someone that was precious to him. It was the hunter Nin's voice that brought Naruto back to reality. She wanted to kill him for what he did and she tried her hardest to fight against the red chakra. Memories of the Hokage telling her that revenge were never right answer. Memories of laughing with Sasuke and hiding behind her when the matron came run through her mind. Now, the two of them were dead. Dead. He will pay dearly for what he did to him. She thought as something inside her snapped and red chakra flowed around her body, changing her once blue eyes to a blood red, her already elongated canines into full fangs, and her nails into claws. I'll kill you for hurting my friend. Haku was for once scared. This malevolent red chakra that surrounded the blonde girl was practically oozing killing intent. What chakra is this? The red chakra seemed to coalesce into the shape of a fox's head above Naruto's body while looking at Haku. It's impossible for the chakra to change like this. And such an evil chakra. Haku watched, as the wounds inflicted on the blonde girl seemed to close on their own, steam rising off of them as they sealed shut. The cuts on her hand, they are healing. What is this girl? Naruto looked over her shoulder at Haku, her bloodthirstiness evident in her eyes as she glared at the mask-wearing Nin. Both Kakashi and Zabuza both felt the malevolent chakra that washed over the bridge. Is this Zabuza's doing? No. That power. So foul, and evil, yet familiar, it can't be. Kakashi's eyes widened at his realization. What's this chakra? There's something not right with it. Is it Kakashi's? No, it's too strong to be him. Zabuza clenched his sword in his hand tightly, fearing an attack from all sides by whoever was emanating that powerful chakra. This is bad. Could it be that the seal have been broken? Kakashi asked, looking concerned at the notion. It's all right. It hasn't completely broken, but the seal is weakening and the Kyuubi's chakra is bursting out. Listen up, Zabuza. I'm a busy man and you're a busy man. We've both got a lot on our plates, so let's stop screwing around and wrap this up. One big move, winner takes all. Kakashi pulled out a small scroll and unraveled it, smearing some blood from his earlier cut across the length of the scroll before rolling it back up and focusing chakra into it. An intriguing notion. What's left, Kakashi? Show me what you've got. Meanwhile, back in the dome, Naruto turned to face Haku and her face became a snarl as she crouched slightly. She's attacking. She's so bloodthirsty. Completely different from the girl I met yesterday. Haku threw several Senbon needles at the charging Naruto, who with a mere roar deflected them away from her. Haku used this chance to move to another mirror, completely surprised at what he just saw. She deflected them, without even touching them. Haku drew 3 Senbon and charged towards Naruto, who merely punched the ground and sprung to the side, dodging the ice user's attack. I've got to make it to the next mirror. Before Haku could even try to make it, Naruto had grabbed a hold of his arm, squeezing with all her considerable might. This is bad. I can't withstand her chakra anymore. With a roar, Naruto crushed Haku's arm, making him lose focus for a moment, which is all she needed to punch him in the face, sending him through one of his mirrors, which made him break the justice, making the other mirrors shatter as well. Naruto took off once she saw the hunter Nin get up, charging towards him with the intent to finish him off. She would have succeeded too had the mist Nin's mask not shattered, revealing the boy she had met the previous day. You're the girly boy from yesterday. Naruto features went back to normal as the fox's chakra dissipated from her body. Why did you stop? Because I don't have the heart to kill you, and murdering you won't bring him back. Naruto said softly. I'm pissed that you murdered him, but killing you isn't going to change that. Besides, the worst punishment is being alive. What happened to all that power from before? You can't hope to kill me with that force you put behind that punch. Finish me off. Zabuza-sama has no use for a weak shinobi. Baka! Naruto yelled, punching the boy in the face. I don't know your reasons for being devoted to him, but you shouldn't be that eager to give up your life for him. You need to live your life for yourself and not for some asshole like him. Honestly, don't you have anyone else that precious to you beside him? I was precious once. When I was little, I lived with my parents in a snowy little village in Kiri. But when I got old enough, something happened. Blood. My blood. What the hell are you talking about? My father killed my mother and tried to kill me. Kiri has been plagued by a civil war of sorts, with the two sides being those with bloodline abilities or Kekkei Genkei and those without. After the war, those of us with Kekkei Genkei were hunted down, and those of us who survived did so because we hid our abilities. I'm sure that boy I killed grew up knowing the pain I speak. We are special, we are powerful, but most of all we are feared. My father learned that my mother came from a clan that had a bloodline, and before I even realized what happened, I had killed my father. Then it came to me, I had to accept it, which was the hardest thing. Accept what? That I was alone in the world, shunned, unwanted. Didn't you tell me you wanted respect from your village? If someone, just one person, not only did that but acknowledged you, even cared for you, wouldn't that one person become the most precious person in the whole world to you? There's a person who was like that to me. Naruto said reluctantly, smiling sadly at him. She was my best friend and we stuck together through thick and thin. She was the most precious person to me and I treated her like she was my world. I would have given her the earth and sun just to see her smile. What happened? She died and I was left all alone, of course. Naruto said sadly. But, instead of giving up my life, I decided to live. Because, that's what she valued. She loved life and you should too. Zabuza-sama adopted me, knowing who I was and what I was. The very thing people hated me for he didn't. In fact, he cherished it, he wanted it. I was so happy. Naruto, please, take my life. Kakashi flipped through hand seals while still holding the scroll before slamming it down on the ground. Kuchio's no jutsu. Doden. Suiga no jutsu. That posturing will get you nowhere, Kakashi. I have you completely in my spell. A small sound alerted Zabuza as several ninja dogs erupted from the ground, each biting him to hold him in place. When your eyes and ears fail you, you can always follow your nose. This jutsu is specifically made for tracking, it's why I went out of my way to bleed during our little bouts. My nin pups have your scent, the fog is lifting and your future is clear. Your future is death. Zabuza chuckled and said, I've had enough of your bluffs, Kakashi. Who is bluffing? You're going to die one way or another. You're willing to let waves suffer to advance your own ambitions. That is not what a true shinobi does. Spare me the philosophy lesson, I'm fighting for my own ideals and I'm not about to stop. Kakashi flipped through 3 hand seals before his right hand became covered in lightning chakra. Your future is death. Why are you hesitating, Naruto? Please hurry up and kill me. I'm not going to kill you, there's no point of me killing you. Naruto said firmly. There's a reason why he likes you and I'm certain that it isn't your Kekkei Genkei or your fighting abilities. Naruto, the day I met you in the forest I was thinking we were the same. Surely you can understand. I'm sorry that you have to have my blood in your hands. Haku said, causing the blonde to growl at him in frustration. You're being an idiot, Naruto yelled. I'm not going to kill you because of my hands being bloodied. It's stupid to throw your life away for someone like this. If I had a tool then I'll improve it, not discard it. She sighed and looked down at her hands. But I can tell that you are very stubborn and none of my words is going to get through you. No, Naruto, you can't change my mind. Haku said sadly. I hope you make your dream come true. Naruto took several deep calm breaths and pulled out her kunai. She glanced at the smooth edges of the kunai and then to the broken-looking boy. The mere idea of her killing him made her feel sick to her stomach. He was someone that had a good heart. Well, it seemed like it to her. But for his sake, she will sacrifice her morals. She charged at Haku. You're going to be very strong one day. Just before Naruto made it to Haku, he sensed something was wrong with Zabuza and caught Naruto's hand. The blonde tilted her head at him and watched blankly as the older teen flipped through the hand seals and conjured a mirror and vanished. This isn't going to end up well, Naruto muttered as she tried to catch up with the older boy. Kakashi charged towards Zabuza, intent on thrusting his Raikiri through him, to find that his hand was now through the young hunter Ninhaku. Zabuza Sama. Well, Kakashi, you said my future was death, but it seems you were wrong again. Naruto could see figures in the mist and rushed towards them, only to see Kakashi's hand through Haku's chest. Her eyes widen in horror and she could feel tears building up from behind her eyes. Why was it that the good ones always die young? Zabuza grabbed his sword and swung it towards Kakashi, who shunshined away with Haku's body, where he laid it down and closed his eyes. So it seems you were able to get away just because poor Haku was already dead. Naruto wasn't a genius, but she was observant when she wanted to be. There was no obvious clue that the man was pained by the death, but there's a slight shaking in his arms. She knew from her personal experience that means he was sad and angry. She was angry that he wasn't willing to admit it. Naruto, you're alive. The blonde turned to see Sakura standing beside Tazuna. She could feel her throat becoming dry as she realizes what she had to tell her teammate. She bit her lips until it bled. This was going to break her teammate's heart. Where's Sasuke? The blonde hesitated. He's dead, Sakura. Naruto answered dully. He died, protecting me. She gulped. That damned idiot had to go and sacrifice his life for me. What the hell was he thinking? He should have protected himself. I'm not someone he should sacrifice his life for. The blonde babbled. Sakura didn't say anything. Instead, she pulled her into a hug, and for the first time in her life, Naruto cried. She cried for the loss of her teammate. She cried for the loss of her best friend and the life that those two could have. I didn't mean for him to do it. Naruto sobbed. It's all right, Naruto, Sakura muttered as she tried to reel in her emotions. It feels strange for her to comfort Naruto. The blonde always comforted her or Sasuke, acting like they were family. Always smiling and making sarcastic comments that was best to describe Naruto's behavior. Not once had she thought that Naruto would act like this. This just goes to show that even the strongest people need to cry. His body right over there, Sakura. Naruto commented as she rubbed her eyes dry of the tears. Her face broke into a huge smile, but even the pink-haired girl could see that the smile was fake. It frightened her. Sakura nodded hesitantly before going to Sasuke with Tazuna. Sakura felt his body and it felt so cold. Tazuna could see the girl was fighting to hold it in. It's okay to let it out. There are times when you just have to cry. Don't hold it in for my sake. Sakura was silent for a moment before she spoke. I used to always get perfect scores on my tests. One of these tests had a question. What is rule number 25 of shinobi conduct? And like always, I simply answered it. No matter what happens, a true shinobi must never, ever show their emotions. The mission is the only priority. Carry that in your heart and never ever shed a tear. Sakura broke down, tears of sadness dropping on Sasuke's face. So this is what a shinobi is. How horrible it is to make children go through that. Tazuna thought as he watched the pink-haired girl cry over her teammate. Naruto's heart clenched and she could feel the tears building up, but this time she suppressed it. It's her fault that her teammate, no, her friend, was dead. Never again will she tease him about his fangirls. Never again will she argue with him about books. He had to be a hero and not save his own skin. That boy just had to be a nice guy to her and protect her. She winced as the memories of the dispelled clones. She smiled in relief when she saw that her clones had been able to defeat the people that had attacked Inari and his mother. She had been so worried that they wouldn't be able to do it and that she had overcalculated, but, thank goodness she'd been right. Zabuza couldn't understand it. Kakashi was batting him aside like he was a pest, and try as he might to hit him, he couldn't seem to land one blow on the copy nin. Before he even knew what was going on, Kakashi had his hand on the back of Zabuza's neck and plunged two kunai into each of his major arm muscles. There, now you can't use either arm. A voice from the end of the bridge caught all their attention. Well, he's certainly made a fine mess of you. What a pity, Zabuza. Gato, what are you doing here? And why did you bring all of them? Simple. There has been a slight change of plans, or of your plans anyways. You must have guessed I never did intend to pay you. It's such a hassle hiring skilled shinobi, so expensive, and their village and friends tend to be upset when you kill them. Nuke Nin, on the other hand, no one cares what happens to you when the job is done. When you ninja wear each other down, common thugs can finish the rest. It's a good business plan, cheap and effective. Hiring you was probably my worst mistake. You're no demon, a baby demon maybe. Kakashi, it seems I am now unemployed, which means our differences are settled. Yeah, looks like it. There is still one more thing to do. Gato said, smiling evilly at them, and the blonde watched in horror as the short man kicked Haku's corpse. A man like him doesn't deserve to live. Naruto thought angrily, trying her hardest not to attack the man. Memories of the matron hitting her best friend's corpse rushed in as she watched him continuous attack Haku's body. He has no right to kick a deceased person. He should respect the dead. The blonde relaxed when she felt Kakashi put his hand on her shoulder. You need to calm down, Naruto. He whispered quietly in her ear. Losing your temper right now isn't a good idea. He's disrespecting the dead. Naruto whispered back harshly. Haku gave his life and the man treats him like dirt. No, she said the last part loudly. Everyone stared at her, but the blonde kept a calm face. Zabuza treated Haku like he's shit even though Haku worshipped him. Naruto, calm down. So what? Haku's dead. Zabuza said calmly, and the blonde gritted her teeth at him. He may be dead, but he followed you since he been a kid. Naruto said angrily. Don't tell me that all these years that you didn't come to care for him like he cared for you. The very least thing you could do was care for the fact that the midget is desecrating his corpse. Brat, Haku and I were used, that's what happens to shinobi. I didn't value Haku for himself, but for the power his blood carried and what his talents could do for me. I apologize for nothing. Naruto frowned and stated, I don't believe you. I think that you cared for him like a father cared for his son because you spent so much time together. It's impossible for me not to believe that you care for him. Naruto, enough. Our quarrel is over, leave him alone. I'm not quarreling with him. Naruto said calmly. I know that our quarrel is over, I just want to know why the hell he's denying his feelings. Her eyes turned icy cold. He's dead because he cared for you. He sacrificed his own life for you because he gave a damn about you. Are you willing to deny the fact that even you have feelings? You raised him since he was young. Brat. Naruto smiled softly at the sight of a crying Zabuza. Finally, she could see that the man was letting out the emotions that he's truly feeling. Not another word. Kid, what Haku did was not just for me. While he fought, his heart broke over you, and your friends. That is the honest truth. He was too kind, too gentle. I'm glad, girl, my last battle was against you. You're right, you know. We may be shinobi, but in the end we're just simply human, with all the feelings involved, and I have now lost everything. Girl, would you lend me your kunai? Naruto sniffled and tossed it to the missing nin, who had now chewed through the bandages covering his face and took off towards Gato and his men. What are you all waiting for? Kill him. Zabuza flared his chakra, which like Naruto's seemed to transform into a monstrous shape, scaring all of the thugs. A demon. Gato thought he was safe behind his men until he saw Zabuza slaughtering them all with just a kunai in his mouth, taking swords, picks, and other weapons in his back. Gato could only watch in horror as Zabuza stabbed the kunai into his chest. Why won't you die? If you're in such a hurry to be with your little friend, go alone. I have no intention of going to the same place as Haku. I'm taking you with me to hell. Even a baby demon in life can grow up into a real demon in hell. Zabuza pulled the kunai out and in one swift motion cut off Gato's head, staring the rest of the thugs in the face, his eyes hardened, daring any of them to charge him. The blonde clenched her hands into a fist as she watched Zabuza fell to the cold hard ground. Was this a shinobi life? To see so much death? To be used as tools? The blue-eyed girl hated the mere idea of becoming a tool to be used and loathed the idea of a person becoming so emotionless or denying his or her own emotion. She doesn't know how she will act if she meets a guy like that. Sakura continued sobbing over Sasuke's body, which unseen to her had twitched. Sakura, your arm is heavy. Sakura blinked once, then twice just to make sure it wasn't a dream. Sasuke really was alive. Sasuke. Sasuke. Sakura. You're hurting me. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm alright, how's Naruto? And the person behind the mask? A tired voice answered behind him. I'm fine. What the hell were you thinking, idiot? Sasuke tried to turn around but was scolded by Sakura, who told him that he's an idiot to try to move. The black-haired boy was taken back when Naruto grabbed him and gave him a hug. He flushed deep red, which was ignored by the said blonde, who was sighing in relief. He opened his mouth to say something but Naruto slapped him in the face, causing him to yelp in pain and Sakura to yell at her. What's that for? For trying to get yourself killed, idiot. Naruto yelled. Did you know what the hell that you made me go through in the past few minutes? You never cared about your safety, always being reckless. When's the last time that I made you worried? Sasuke said, smirking at her. Of course you did. The blonde screeched. You're my teammate and friend, I would react the same way if it had been Hinata or Sakura. And I thought I was special. No, if you were special then I would have done more than slap you. The blonde spat. Honestly, what the hell were you thinking when you did that stupid stunt? You could have gotten yourself killed. You know damn well beside Hinata why I don't like seeing people die. The black-haired boy eyes softened and he reluctantly said. I'm sorry. Good. Sasuke Tem. The blonde grinned. Honestly, I think that's the first time I heard the great Uchiha apologized. I guess that makes me special. Aren't you two forgetting something? You just killed our meal ticket. Now the only way to break even is to loot the town. A lone crossbow bolt landed in front of the group of thugs. Naruto and the others turned to see Inari and the villagers all armed ready to defend their home. Stop right where you are. This is our home. Come one step closer and you'll die where you stand. The blonde was taken back to see Inari standing there along with the rest of the village. She racked her head and realized that maybe one of her clones had spoken some sense into him. Oh, the wonder of clones. Inari. A hero always arrives at the last second, you know. Naruto smiled at this, happy to see that the boy had learned his lesson. She grinned and formed a familiar cross-hand seal. I can't manage anything solid with my chakra this low, but a bluff should be enough to scare these guys off. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Kakashi style. Over 100 copies of Kakashi stood all armed with kunai and doing hand seals. Now shall we? Never mind. Run away. The thugs started running and jumping over each other to get off the bridge. They had all seen what Zabuza had done to them and he was one ninja, never mind the hundreds that were now on the bridge. The bridge was safe now, and Gato was dead, meaning Wave was now safe. Everyone including the ninjas that helped protect them could rest easy. Naruto hoped the dynamitic of their team doesn't change. It had been weeks since the Wave incident, as Naruto had called it her mind. Nothing had changed between her and the rest of the team, besides them getting a little bit closer. Naruto swears that Sasuke had been acting even more strangely than usual. His face keeps turning red at the oddest of times. Her and the rest of the team had just finished their last mission and Naruto decided that it was the perfect time for her to wander around the village. After the deaths of Haku and Zabuza, it became a habit of hers to do this. It helps her in dealing with their deaths and remembers what they did for her. She gave a smile at the glaring adults, who flinched at her, and then continue on her way with no destination in mind. Occasionally, she would stop walking and smell the flowers before continuing on with her walk. I wish there was something interesting to do. Naruto muttered as she kicked the rocks. Kakashi-sensei doesn't really give us any more good missions ever since Wave. She shook her head and stuffed her hands into her pocket, debating whether or not she should go back to her apartment. Hinata was busy with training and the same can be said for Sasuke. Shikamaru is probably with his team and eating. Sakura might be in the library or stalking Sasuke, likely the former than the latter. No one knows where Sasuke trains except her. The sounds of angered yells snapped her out of her troubled thoughts. Naruto pursed her lips and debated whether or not to go see what was happening or go back to her lonely apartment. She chose the first option. The blonde-haired girl quickly ran to the site of the commotion and was surprised to see Konohamaru being holed up by a Suna genin, who wore makeup on his face. Beside the Suna genin, was his female teammate who had a pissed expression on her face. I am sorry, I was messing around, a familiar voice apologizes. Naruto looked around the empty street to find the familiar voice and was surprised to see Sakura, who was standing right beside her. Why hadn't she noticed her? What the hell happened, Sakura? And why's Konohamaru being held up by some makeup boy? Naruto asked, flickering her eyes wearily at the foreign shinobi. The kid called me ugly and I got so pissed that I wanted to hit him. Sakura explained, flinching at the glare that Naruto is giving her. The blonde sighed and pursed her lips at Konohamaru, who gave her a pleading look to save him from the makeup-wearing boy. She rolled her eyes at him and said, "How many times have I told you to think before you say anything? 100 times, but honestly, you can't deny that she's ugly." Konohamaru yelled. And I can't deny that you're an idiot to call a girl ugly. Naruto retorted. You know extremely well that you shouldn't call a female ugly. I warned you so many times that you shouldn't say your thoughts out loud. Well, she deserved it. Why? Konohamaru struggled to answer the question and the blonde remembered the boy was still being held by the older boy. She glanced at Sakura, who blushed and stammered as she explained to her about what happened. By the end of it, the blonde laughed before shaking her head at them. Honestly, that is truly Konohamaru and Sakura thing to do. Well, at least Konohamaru have a good reason to call you that. Naruto said, after she was done laughing. Naruto-ne-chan, are you done laughing? Konohamaru asked sweetly. Yes. Good, because can you get me out of here? Konohamaru yelled, kicking and punching the older genin's body. The blonde-haired girl put her hands in her hips and said calmly. And why the hell should I do that? This might be a good lesson for you on not to insult a girl. Come on, I'm your friend. Friend or not, you need to learn your lesson. He pouted at her and the blonde sighed. The boy was very evil and he knew it. Konohamaru knew that she was weak against his puppy dog eyes. How the hell was Iruka immune to it? Better yet, how's the Hokage immune to it? She could barely stand 5 seconds before saying yes. The blue-eyed girl smiled at the Suna genin and said, "Forgive my teammate and friend for what they done to you." She chuckled. You aren't so petty as to hold a grudge over them for something as small as this. So please let him go. And why should I? The makeup-wearing genin asked. It's the right thing to do. Naruto said blandly. And he hasn't done anything wrong by bumping into you, and I'm sure that he'll apologize to you. Because it is the right thing to do. Naruto pointed out dryly. He looked at her thoughtfully. The blonde-haired girl shuddered in displeasure when she saw how his eyes were raking her body as if she were a prize to be won. She clenched her hand into a fist, thinking to herself that punching him won't be a crime. All right, but only if you agree to go out on a date with me. The day I go out with you is the day I wear a dress and follow Sasuke around like a lost puppy. She said sweetly. If you don't know that means, then I'll spell it out to you. That means never in your life. Why not? You wear more makeup than my own teammate. It is war paint, not makeup. He yelled. Naruto gave him an innocent look and innocently asked, Are you sure? Because from where I am standing that does look like makeup. He growled at her words and she simply gave him an impassive look. Why, you little? I always tell the truth, and from my point of view that's makeup. Naruto said sweetly. Also, the boy you're holding is the Hokage's grandson, and I'm sure you're smart enough to know where is this heading to if you don't drop him. Kankuro snorted in disbelief and he pointed out, if he is your Hokage's grandson, then why did she attack him? How the hell am I supposed to know? My teammate can be impulsive at times. Naruto retorted. But I know she won't repeat the same mistake, right, Sakura? Alright. Sakura stuttered. Besides, Do you really want to take the chance and have the Hokage's wrath? Naruto continued. He reluctantly shook his head and let the little boy down, who quickly ran towards his older sister figure but not before sticking his tongue out to him. Now that wasn't that Naruto trailed off and Sakura wondered why. She looked at the direction that the blonde was looking and saw a redhead boy standing upside down on a tree branch. Beside him was Sasuke. Gee, Gaara. He practically whimpered. Oh, and now you decide to show up. Naruto retorted to her teammate, ignoring the fact that the makeup-wearing boy was whimpering at the sight of his teammate. Sasuke rolled his eyes at her and answered, long enough to see your diplomatic skills. And how do I rank? The raven-haired teen sighed and answered reluctantly, A6. And here I thought that you would rank me a 10. Naruto said sarcastically. You insulted him. Sasuke pointed out. How would that rank a 10? It's creative. She retorted. I only tell the truth and insults is one of them. Besides, he made it seem like I'm a prize to be won and I'm no prize. Tell me, won't you do the same thing if it's your fangirls? He didn't answer. I thought so. Naruto said smugly. Kankuro, the redhead said. You nearly started a war between our two nations because some kid bumped into you. Naruto frowned in disagreement with him. You truly an embarrassment to our village. You know that's a very harsh thing to say to your teammate. Naruto retorted, looking the redhead straight in the eyes. Her breath caught when she saw just how emotionless those eyes were. He's one of those people. Great. She's smart to open her mouth. I don't see how this concerns you. The blonde twitched at this comment and any idea of ending the conversation was over. You basically insulted your teammate, that's not something I can forgive. She said calmly. I'll admit that he has done something stupid, but it gives you no right to call him an embarrassment to your village. He stared at her and the blonde rolled her eyes at him. Keep staring at me and I get wrong ideas. The blonde retorted. Now, look Gaara-san, you shouldn't be belittling your teammate. Everyone stared at her in shock but Naruto ignored them. Instead she continued to stare at him. Her blue eyes didn't flinch one bit as he glared at her. Instead, she looked calmly at him, waiting for a response to her comment. It was strange for her to see such emotionless eyes. I don't know you but I can tell that you don't treat them well and for your sake, you should treat them better. Naruto spoke calmly. You'll never know when you need them. And what right do you have to say? He asked, ignoring the gaping looks from his teammate. None, she admitted. But you shouldn't treat them like this. He nodded his head at her but the blonde doubt that her words got to his head. The boy stared at her for several minutes but not with the emotion that his teammate had shown or the ones that the fanboys show. He simply stared at her with curiosity. She didn't know if that's good or not. Why do you think that we came to Leaf Village? The question was directed towards Kankuro and Temari. Listen Gaara. They started it. Kankuro began a rather childish explanation. Why isn't that childish of you to say? Naruto muttered under her breath. Sakura quietly giggled at her teammate's words. Shut up or I'll kill you, Gaara said in a flat, conversational tone. Yet there was no doubt that he would really do it. Kankuro immediately fell silent. Naruto's eyes widened at his words and said without even thinking, isn't that a little bit harsh for you to say? He arched his invisible eyebrows at her and said, no. Really then what is harsh for you to say? Naruto asked. Everyone gawked at her but none more so than Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto, I think you said enough. Sakura whispered to her teammate. The blonde-haired girl stubbornly shook her head at him and coldly said, he just threatened to kill his teammate. How the hell am I supposed to keep my mouth shut? Naruto. Sakura whispered harshly into her ear but the blonde ignored her. You're different. Gaara stated and the blonde grinned at him, causing him to look at her with surprise. I've been told that I'm different. Kankuro and Temari stared at the blue-eyed girl in shock. Not once in their life had they seen someone standing up to their little brother. It just wasn't right and this small girl was going to get herself killed if she keeps going like this. Okay, I am sorry, Kankuro said, drawing their attention back to him. For once he will shallow his fear of his brother and put his attention back on him then on the girl. I am also sorry. Really sorry, Tamari added, her voice trembling in fear. Gaara seemed to ignore her completely. He stared at Naruto for a moment and then jumped down from the branch, landing between Tamari and Kankuro. Sorry to you guys. Gaara said to them. Naruto arched her eyebrows at him and asked, Are you truly sorry? In my eyes that sounds like you're just saying it for the sake of saying it. He glared at her and the blonde rolled her eyes and said. You know I'm not scared of that glares of yours. What's your name? Gaara asked. Naruto chuckled at him and answered. I don't give my names to strangers, so if you want my name you better make me want to say it or at least figure it out because no way in hell am I telling you my name. He arched his eyebrows at her and she simply shrugged her shoulders at him as her response. Something about him made her feel dizzy and the old man words about her other half kept reminding her. He sighed and she grinned. Let's go, he said. The Suna trio turned to leave. Naruto exhaled in relief and calmness. He scared the crap out of her and not for the reasons for what people think. She doesn't like him, one bit. You seem to be in a bad mood lately, Naruto-chan. Hinata commented lightly as she took a small sip of her drink. Is something the matter? Naruto blinked her eyes and looked down at her drink before giving an apologetic smile to Hinata. It was supposed to be their time to catch up but of course, her mind started to wander around the redhead boy. She bit her lips and a small sigh escaped her lips when she saw the concerned look in her friend's face. It's silly, Hinata-chan. Naruto said quietly, twirling her straw in circles in her drink. Mind telling me, what is it? Hinata asked. I think it will make you feel better if you tell me. The blonde curled her lips and nodded. A few days ago, Konohamaru got into trouble with a bunch of genin from Suna. She frowned. It's nothing serious but, I met the genin leader of the team and to be honest, he frightened me. She confessed. I haven't felt that frightened since her death. Hinata blinked her eyes and her eyes softened at her friend. It's been years since you lost Cho's death hasn't it? She asked quietly and the blonde nodded. And you have been having those nightmares again, haven't you? It's my fault that she died, Hinata-chan. Naruto said quietly. You weren't there when she died and her sister and I both know that it's my fault that she died. You were just a little kid, Naruto. The blue-eyed girl smiled bitterly at the reminder. It doesn't matter because if I hadn't been so stubborn then she would haven't been dead. She smiled somberly. You know, I don't blame her for hating me. It's completely irrational for her to hate you. The Hyuga heiress said calmly. None of you have seen it coming, how would you know that it was going to be the consequence? The blonde nodded her head and muttered. Perhaps, you're right but it still doesn't change a thing. Naruto-chan. Anyways, that boy frightened me. Naruto said, changing the subject. His eyes were so void, so empty that it frightened me and the way he treated his teammates, it's just so cold, I just don't like it, it reminds me of. Hinata took a small sip of her soda and tapped her finger while the blonde took her time to reel in her emotions. It just reminded me of the year after her death, Hinata-chan. She admitted. I was just so empty for the longest time and I wasn't myself. If it hadn't been for you and Sasuke then I might have lost myself. She smiled. I miss those days when it was just me, you and Sasuke. Speaking of Sasuke, what's going on between the two of you? Hinata asked quietly, smiling at her friend. Does he still seem sick to you? The blonde narrowed her eyes suspiciously at her friend before nodding. Yes, I don't get it. She growled. Ever since we got back from the mission in Nami no Kuni, he has been acting so damn weird, turning red at the oddest of times. The Hyuga heiress shook her head at her friend in amusement, causing Naruto to raise her eyebrows at her friend. Honestly, why was everyone doing this to her? Is there something that they know that she doesn't know? She rubbed her chin as she tried to figure out what was wrong with her friend. He shouldn't be acting this strange. She shook her head and rubbed her hands before closing her eyes. An image of the redhead boy's cold eyes made her shiver and she gulped. Not once in her life had she seen such icy eyes. His stare just reminded her of a snake and how she's the prey while he's a predator. Naruto didn't like the idea of being a prey, again. It just reminds her of the bad times. Have you ever thought that maybe he likes you? The blonde blinked her eyes at Hinata. Sasuke will never like me like that, she said calmly. And even if he did, then I won't able to return his feelings because it will be just too awkward for us. Sasuke likes you in that way, Naruto-chan. Hinata said, smiling at her. He has always liked you. The boy just sees me as his friend. Naruto retorted. I'm his shield against his fangirls, besides, I'm the only one that has a clue on how he feels. The blue-haired girl nodded and lightly commented. The two of you have always been close. Playing with her straw, Naruto remembered the good times that the three of them used to have. Those had been the best times of her life. At the time, there had been no worries and Sasuke wasn't a revenge-ridden boy. He had been just another normal boy, who was also too arrogant to her taste. But Naruto, answer me, do you have feelings for Sasuke-san in that way? Hinata asked. The two of you are close, so it is alright if you do have feelings for him. The blonde rubbed her chin and said. No, I don't like Sasuke in that way. He had always been my best friend, so I can't imagine dating him. In fact, I can't imagine falling in love, anyways. She confessed. No matter how hard I try, Hinata-chan, I can't picture myself being like that or being in a relationship. I will just fail in that department. You may not, but I can. Hinata said truthfully. The blonde arched her eyebrows at the girl, causing the blue-haired girl to blush in embarrassment. I am mean. I think you're the type that most people generally like. Besides, I know that you will put your all into making a relationship work. Maybe, but still, I can't help but wonder, who on this world will like me in that way? The blonde mused, smiling brightly at her friend. I mean, I'm sarcastic as hell and I'm not the type of person that sits down and waits ideally for a boy to come. Naruto shuddered at the image. Seriously, I can't imagine a guy that will like me for that. Hinata smiled sadly at her friend's words. There is a guy that will like you for that, but only if you just really open up to them. The blue-haired girl thought as she watched her friend pulls out her wallet. If only she had enough courage to inform her friend of this. Neither of them notices a pair of teal-colored eyes watching them. Gaara had no idea what was it about the blonde-haired girl that interested him. There was nothing remarkable about her in terms of strength. She appears to be in average strength, not the usual strong people that curious him. Her physical appearance was pretty, are hot in Konkuro's words, but he wasn't the type that cares about the physical appearance. It must be the way that she had talked back to him. Not once had someone ever talked to him in that way. Not once. Yet, this girl had stood her ground and argued, instead of cowering in fear. It was definitely a strange for him, but one that excites him. It was because of this strange fixation of her that he had gone as far as stalking her, well, observing in his mind. So far, he had learned a lot of things about his fixation. Sadly, it was little things and only one big thing. The girl loves ramen, bit her lips when she thinks too much and loved the color orange. He didn't know anything that can crush her. Hinata-chan is seriously delusional to think that a guy will like me for me. The blonde-haired girl said, bitterly as she kicked a can to the wall. I don't least act in a way that girls should act, honestly I act like an idiot. She muttered. I wonder if my parents are like me in that way. Gaara arched his non-visible eyebrows and looked at the blonde-haired girl with newfound interest. The small frown and the brokenness in her eyes was strange, it was filled with sadness, he had never seen someone look like that before. I don't even know why I even care. The blonde said in frustration. For all I know, my parents might have abandoned me like the adults had said, or maybe they are really dead. She growled. Damn it. Why am I thinking about them only now? Why do I give a damn if they are alive? If they were dead, then fine. I don't need them. I have been doing well all my life. Gaara kept quiet at this, and a small part of him was curious to know more about her past. Nothing he had learned about her satisfied his curiosity. No, not curiosity, she was his obsession. He wanted to know why his mother was so restless when he was near her. And her questioning me about that stupid Suna boy. Naruto yelled. Why did I have to tell her my fears of him? Oh right, she's my best friend and I can't keep a secret from her. The redhead boy blinked his eyes while the blonde started to bounce in her spot. Good thing I didn't tell her that I also felt that there was something about him that reminded him of me. She said, looking at the clear blue sky with sorrow. I wonder if I hadn't had Hinata or Sasuke if I had been like him. The red-haired boy blinked his eyes at this, unsure about whether he should kill the girl for insulting him. On one hand, she insulted him, in the other hand, he made a promise to his father that he won't kill anyone since it will bring suspicion to them. He hated that he had to control his urges, but unfortunately, an order is an order. But I doubt that I would have become like this if I didn't have you, Cho. The blonde said, and for a moment Gaara thought that she was staring at him. Between you and me, you were the one that was meant for something more. People loved you more than me, yet you treated me better than anyone. The blonde's body started to shake and Gaara could see tears pouring out of her eyes. It was strange for him to see someone crying. He had never seen someone cry before. If I hadn't been weak, then maybe you would be alive. The blonde said bitterly. I'm living my life the way you think life should be lived, but I can't bring myself to give a cheerful smile again. Gaara arched his non-visible eyebrows at the girl, who was too busy staring at the sky to notice him. The sadness and pain in her eyes confounded him. A few days ago, she had the courage to talk back to him, but now it doesn't seem like it. He stood there and watches awkwardly as the blonde cried. Should he kill her? It will stop her crying, that's for certain. The blonde started laughing, surprising Gaara. He had never thought that the girl would laugh. She looked ready to cry, yet she laughs instead, and this puzzles him greatly. From what he's seen, people cry when they're sad. They don't laugh. So why was this girl laughing? Yes, this confuses him. But I'll give a real, cheerful smile one day, because being sad is not something that you enjoy. The blonde said, looking up at the sky. It may not be today, but it will happen. I will do it as naturally as your sister can. Gaara blinked his eyes at her words and furrowed his non-visible eyebrows at this. Why was it important for her to give a real smile? What were these emotions that she wants to display? Why display emotions anyway? This girl truly baffles him greatly. He gave a cruel smile as he watched the girl. He couldn't wait to kill the girl. Maybe she can truly prove his existence. He licks his lips and ignored his mother's tempting whispers. Soon, he will kill the girl. Naruto is late. HN. Sakura sighed at her crush response and scanned the area, searching for any clues that their teammate will arrive soon. She stole a glance at Sasuke and shook her head sadly. No matter how much she wants to believe that the Uchiha's heir will date her, she knows it won't happen. He was just way into Naruto. She smiled bitterly. Of course, he has a crush on Naruto. She's strong, funny and kind, but so very loud and at times an idiot. However, two of them have known each other for a long time. For the longest time, Sakura envied Naruto. She was everything that she wasn't. Confident and headstrong, that's the best way to describe her. Why does Naruto seem to have all the luck? Even Sasuke likes her. The pink-haired girl shook her head and curled her hands into a fist. Naruto doesn't like Sasuke in that way, she even said so herself. Her teammate will never lie about something like that. But a small part of her doubts it. Who wouldn't like Sasuke? Yet, Naruto doesn't act like she has a crush on him. If anything, she just seems like a girl that's clueless about her friend's feelings. Sasuke-kun, do you think that Naruto is sick? Sasuke shrugged. We shouldn't be concerned about it. He replied. You know pretty well that Naruto doesn't get sick. But it isn't like her to be late. Knowing her, she might have slept in again. He muttered. Seriously, if she read those books again, I might need to burn them. Burn those books and I'll personally make your life a living hell. A voice said darkly. You know damn well that if you burn those books that I will personally find ways to ruin your life, and you know that I'm good at that. The two of them twirled around. Sakura immediately squeaked while Sasuke just rolled his eyes. Their blonde-haired teammate was standing under the tree, in her hands were sweets. Her eyes were lit in merriment and her hair was for once in a braid. Sorry, I'm late but I had to buy some sweets, she said happily, waving her bags of sweets to them. There was a special sale for them, and well, who can't resist a great bargain? You, apparently, he muttered. What's the deal with you and bargain? The blonde put her hands on her hips and glared at her teammate. You know damn well that I'm particularly stingy with money, she said angrily. Unlike you, I have to save my money. The blonde gave him a dark look and stomped her foot. Sasuke smirked at this, which went unnoticed by Naruto but was noticed by Sakura. The pink-haired girl gulps at the sight and glance at her teammate, who was muttering about ungrateful male teammate. Why couldn't Sasuke direct those smirks at her? Or give a real smile like he does with Naruto? It was just unfair. Honestly, you should smile, Sasuke, Naruto commented as she pinched Sasuke's cheeks. Keep frowning and you will look like the Hokage and we don't want to ruin your fabulous young face. Sakura shook her head at the pair of them and smiled at the pair of them. Naruto peeped at her and gave her thumbs up as well as a bright smile. Why oh why, can't Sasuke be a little bit concerned like Naruto? The pink-haired girl shook her head and gave a weak smile, causing the blonde to cast a worried glance at her. Sakura, are you alright? She asked. The pink-haired girl shook her head and answered. I'm fine. Bullshit, Naruto said calmly. Something is bothering you. Nothing is bothering me, Sakura squeaked. The blonde narrowed her eyes and said. Sakura, tell me what's bothering you. You know that I'm willing to help you with any issue that you have. The pink-haired girl smiled and said. There's nothing wrong with me, Naruto. The blonde looked at her and sighed. The one good thing about her teammate, in Sakura's opinion, was that she doesn't push you for information. True, the girl can act like a mother hen at times. Like last week, when she got injured. Naruto had immediately fussed over her, insisting that she goes to the hospital. The best example yet, was what she did to Sasuke after the battle. Naruto had practically made Sasuke stay in bed, not listening to him when he says that he's fine. She kept a close eye on him, shouting at him when he tries to stand up. She also kept scolding him for being rash. That had been the first time Sakura saw Sasuke being scolded or Naruto look so worried. During that whole stay, she thought that something brewed between them. Looking back at it now, she knows that Naruto cares about her teammates so much. But if there is anything wrong, you know that you can come to me, right? Naruto asked, gazing at her with concern. I'm your teammate and friend, I'll do anything to help you. Sakura nodded and softly said. I know. Good morning, guys, Kakashi said, smiling them. I'm sorry that I'm late but I got lost in the road of life. Naruto rolled her eyes and said to her teammates. Who's in favor of taking Sensei to rehab? The other two members of Team 7 nodded their heads and Naruto continued. You see Sensei, me and the other have come in agreement that your excuses are truly silly and idiotic. She sighed. Honestly, I got lost in the road of life. That had to be the worst lie ever. Kakashi smiled at his students and said. For all you know that may be true. The blonde arched her eyebrows. The day that is true is the day, I will wear a frilly pink dress. She said. And that isn't going to happen. Well, we can always force you to wear a pink frilly dress. Kakashi said lightly. I know that all the boys will be happy to see you in a dress. Do it and I will make sure that you will never be able to use the part that makes you a man. Naruto said sweetly. I'll have no problem burning those porn books of yours. Kakashi paled at this threat, causing the blonde to chuckle and even Sasuke to smirk. Sakura grinned. In her opinion, their team was the best one out of all the rookie teams. Oh, by the way, this may be sudden but I have decided to enter you guys into the Chunin exams. Kakashi announced. And if you guys wish to sign up then you should be in room 301 by 4 p.m. tomorrow. Did he just say that he had entered us into the Chunin exams? Naruto asked Sakura. Yes. Naruto nodded her head and said to her sensei. I respect you, sensei, but you have officially became a idiot. That hurts, Naruto-chan. You should have told us in the goddamn beginning. The blonde yelled. Why did you decide to tell us of now of all times? Honestly, all those porn books made you lose common sense. Whoever said that sensei ever had common sense in the beginning? Sakura asked. The blonde tilted her head and answered thoughtfully. Well, he's insane and a pervert, so I guess we can't rule out the idea that he didn't have any common sense. Kakashi shook his head at their comments. Sasuke rolled his eyes at them while the two girls grinned. This was her team and there was nothing Sakura will replace in their team. Not their crazy, perverted sensei or her teammates, she wouldn't replace any of them. To her, this team has become her family. Naruto hates exam. They gave her pressure and if you didn't pass them, then the teacher will scold you. They were also a waste of time in her opinion, but she always tries her best when it comes to them anyway. Never giving up was her motto. Giving up was not something a person should do in her opinion. They should just try and try again in her opinion. But, the Chunin exams weren't like the academy exams. It was very different from the exams that they took. She had heard rumors about those exams, rumors of how people had died in the exam. People have even gone mad or stopped becoming a shinobi because of these exams. The mere idea of not being a ninja frightens her. The possibility of no longer being a ninja seemed higher in this exam, in her opinion. That Suna boy radiated killer intention. Naruto closes her eyes, remembering his cold eyes. It was filled with so much hate. She clenched her hands into a fist. Those eyes told her that he has no problems of killing people. A person like that was not someone you want attention from, but like the rash idiot she was, she did the opposite. It was for a good reason, but still, she shouldn't have gotten attention at her. Her lips. A person like that should be avoided and feared. The funny thing was that she didn't fear him because of his crazed look, but the emptiness of his eyes was like a mirror of what she could be. Of what she would have been. It should be the killer intent, not that, but oddly enough it doesn't really frighten her that badly. Looking at the mirror, Naruto wonders if wearing a new outfit was truly a good idea. The orange clothes that she wore was a part of her, but it will be stupid of her to stand out too much in the Chunin exams. She felt uncomfortable with the outfit she wore. It was a present that the Hokage had given her for her 12th birthday. Wearing the red blouse and dark black pants made her feel practically naked. She never wears clothes like this, but she didn't want to stand out too much. She licked at her lips and glanced at the pictures. Tears started to fall down from her eyes. She clenched her hands into a fist. I will become a Chunin. She thought as she looked out at the pictures. I will make you proud. Naruto said loudly at the pictures, and with that, she made her way to the door. Ready to meet with her two teammates, who might be pissed that she's late. Much to Naruto's surprise, her teammates had not scolded her for being late. Sasuke had simply grunted at her and arched his eyebrows at the change of attire. She scowled at his silent question and made a silent gesture to the females. He paled at her. She grinned. Oh, how she loved the fact that he understand her oh so well. Sakura, on the other hand, was being awfully quiet, and this troubled the young girl. It was quite rare for Sakura to be this silent, and when she was, it was often troubling. The depressed look on the pink-haired girl's face just made it even worse for her. Her teammate was rarely depressed, so this was troubling. Maybe it isn't a good idea for them to enter. She shook her head and reminded herself that maybe Sakura's depression will fade during the exams. The blonde sighed as they walked towards the room where they were supposed to turn their applications in. There had been a test on the second floor where people were tricked into thinking a different room was the right one, and Sasuke nearly spilled the beans but hadn't due to her suggestions. For once, she has gotten him to listen to her suggestion about this. Though, she had to point out to him that the less enemies that they have, the better. If that didn't work, then she would have no choice but to use blackmail material, or worse, tell his fangirls where his hiding spots are. That would be funny, especially his reaction. Hey, guy with dark eyes. A loud voice yelled as they reached the center of the room. Looking up, Naruto saw a boy wearing a repulsive green spandex jumpsuit standing on the balcony that surrounded the room. The blonde-haired girl tilted her head at the boy, shuddering at the outfit that he wore. That shows more than she needed to know. And what's the deal with the eyebrows? They were just too creepy. And how can someone grow that big anyway? It should be impossible. What is it? Sasuke asked, looking at the spandex-wearing boy in annoyance. Will you fight me right here? The blue-eyed girl looked at her teammate with concern and curiosity. Her teammate wouldn't be an idiot and accept the fight, right? He had more sense than do something stupid. They aren't supposed to get into any fights. They need to save their energy for goodness sakes. A fight right now? Yes. Naruto wanted to cry. If there's one thing she knew about her friend was that he loves fights. She wanted to throttle the boy if he agrees to this. No, she will personally murder him if even he dares to accept it. My name is Rock Lee. Lee introduced himself as he did a front flip off of the balcony and landed gracefully. When you want to learn a person's name, you introduce yourself first, right? Uchiha Sasuke. Scoffed Sasuke. Hey, so you know. I want to fight you. Lee said as he did into a taijutsu stance. I want to test my techniques against the offspring of the genius ninja clan. Naruto glared at her teammate and slapped him in the back of his head. Normally I'm fine with you getting into a fight, but, she glared at the two boys, this isn't the time to get into a fight. The Chunin exam's rules specify that we don't get into any fights outside the exam. Do you want me and Sakura to get disqualified? We also got 30 minutes as well. Sakura added. Challenging me knowing the Uchiha name, Sasuke said, not paying attention to their warning. Frankly, you are a fool. The blonde growled at his words. Naruto doesn't know anything about Lee, but she knows that her teammates already underestimating him. Kakashi had taught them time and time again, never to underestimate your opponent. It will get you killed in battle. You got something to say, dope. Sasuke growled. Of course I got a bloody problem. The two of you are acting like a bunch of 5-year-olds, she said angrily, ignoring her teammates' glare. Like I said, you can get us disqualified because of the commotion that you make. And when that happens, they will disqualify us because of your damn pride. And have you ever thought that you might get hurt? So what if I get hurt and they won't disqualify you guys because of me? The whiskered girl trembled in anger. So what if you get hurt? Baka, I already thought that you died once, do you seriously want me to see you badly injured again? She yelled. Being disqualified doesn't matter to us, but if you get hurt then that matters. Neither me or Sakura will like to see you badly hurt again. Naruto. Don't Naruto me. Fighting him will not prove anything. She yelled. It will just prove that you're just some idiotic rash boy that doesn't even care about his safety. Remember what happened with Haku. He could have killed you, but thankfully he didn't. Don't make us go through that again. You know damn well that I don't want a friend to die like Cho had. You know very well I don't want my friend to get injured. Sasuke faltered at this, causing the blonde to look hopeful that her teammate will actually listen to her for once. Will he listen to her about this? Did he know the turmoil that she was in when he died? Of course not, he had been unconscious. She doesn't know what to think if he had been dead. He insulted my clan, Naruto, this isn't something that I can forgive. Thick brows must learn what this name means. Sasuke said softly, looking at the blonde with an unreadable expression. Please, Lee said, not helping Naruto with what he just elder boy then proceeded to make a, come hither, motion with his hand. The blonde slapped the boy on the face, causing him to look at her in shock. Lee was simply amazed that she did something like that. Sakura pursed her lips, knowing that her teammate was seriously angry with Sasuke with what he was doing. So what if he insults your clan? You can get your payback during the course of the exam. She yelled. Just because he insulted your clan, doesn't mean you pick a fight. Be the bigger person and ignore his comment. Sakura put her hands on Naruto's shoulder and the blonde looked at her pink-haired teammate with sadness. She was tired with her teammate's behavior. Does he ever think that she wanted him to be safe? Not to get hurt again. She doesn't want him to get hurt before the exams. If you even think of continuing this fight, Sasuke, I will personally make sure that you know just how much of an idiot you are. She spat. I won't even do any first aid on you if you get hurt. That will be punishment for being an idiot. Sasuke nodded numbly while Sakura looked ready to protest at her words about not healing the Uchiha heir. Didn't she realize that it would be her chance to get Sasuke to notice her? And why shouldn't they heal him? He was their teammate and deserves to get treatment for the wounds that he might have. Her eyes drifted towards the balcony. Something tells her that she was being watched by somebody, but who? No, a better question was why would someone want to watch her? Naruto have the darkest feeling that the Chunin exam will change her life and maybe not for the better. I told you so. Sasuke glared at the smiling blonde, whose hands were in her pockets. The older boy had bruises in his arms and as Naruto said, she didn't heal him and certainly forbid Sakura from healing him. It was his own fault for being an idiot. How many times has she told him not to get injured? More than 50 times, that's for certain. You don't have to keep rubbing it in. I have some right. Naruto retorted. I told you that it was a stupid thing to do, but did you listen? Exactly. Naruto snapped. You deserve those bruises. I hope that it will teach you a lesson of not being an idiot. I'm not an idiot. Yes, you're. She snapped. Have you ever thought that we might need you for the exam? You would be fine. It's also your fault that we had to meet that insane man. Naruto continued, glaring at him. Now, I need to wash my eyes from those disgusting images. Not my fault. It seems like the two of you are having your lover quarrel again. A familiar voice said in amusement. The two of them stopped arguing and turned to yell at the person who said that, but only to find out that it was their sensei. Naruto blinked and opened her mouth, but no words formed. She certainly didn't expect to see him here, and a small part of her wonders if he knew what happened earlier with Lee and that disgusting old man. She gulped as she remembered the horror of watching the two males hugging each other. Those two showed her things that she certainly didn't want to see. Just the mere memory of the two of them hugging made her want to vomit. They were that disgusting. Why does Naruto look like she wants to vomit? Kakashi asked. Because I saw a grown man hugged his student, with some crazy jutsu. I see. Kakashi said, in amusement. You met Guy, didn't you? Oh, is that his name? Weren't you paying attention when he was introducing himself? Sakura asked. The blonde blinked her eyes and muttered. I must have been trying to erase those vile images from my brain. Kakashi smiled sympathetically at her, looking as if he understood her pain. She honestly doubted that he does. He wasn't there watching a grown man hugging a boy for a good 5 minutes. It made her want to hurl her lunch content out. Almost as bad as eating vegetables, but even worse if that's even possible. It took all of her willpower not to make a sarcastic comment, and God, did she ever wanted to run away when they showed that horrible sun jutsu. Now we can properly take the exam, Kakashi said, returning their attention back to him. What do you mean? Asked Sakura. I guess it means that he was lying to us again. You were lying to us earlier, weren't you? Naruto accused. You always lie to us, from your hobbies to where you are. I didn't lie to you. Kakashi said. I just didn't tell you that the test is meant to be taken in teams of 3. Isn't that basically lying to us? Naruto asked to her teammates before giving Sasuke a pointed look. Sakura nodded her head while Sasuke started to rub his injured body, not looking directly at her eyes. She sighed. That damn bastard was truly stubborn about admitting that he's in pain. It's because of his need to get stronger that he almost made them God disqualify. She had nearly wanted to take him to the hospital, but she didn't. He's going to learn his lesson. Now, they might not enter the exams because of his injuries. If I told the truth, Naruto or Sasuke would have pressured you to take the exam. That made her return her attention back to her sensei. Do I look like the type of person who would pressured someone to do something they wouldn't do? Naruto asked, glaring at her sensei. Honestly, yes. Sakura and Sasuke said in unison. You're bunch of jerks. Naruto said, pouting at her two smirking teammates. Anyways, Kakashi said, returning the three genins to the topic at hand. Even if Sasuke asked you, you would through it wasn't in your heart. For the sake of Sasuke and, well, Naruto, too. I'm glad to see that I'm an afterthought. Naruto muttered. I feel so much love from my sensei and my teammates. Sasuke rolled his eyes at her and nudged her, causing her to raise her eyebrows at him. He pointed at Kakashi and Sakura, who were now in a heavily discussion about what would happen if she hadn't arrived. She sighed. It would have been so troublesome if Sakura hadn't arrived, but at least Sasuke wouldn't have been so much of an idiot. Still, he was her friend. An arrogant friend at times, but still he was her friend. But you came of your own will and I'm proud that all of you are in my team. Kakashi said, giving them one of his infamous smiles. Now go. We're proud to have an old man like you for a sensei, Naruto said, grinning cheekily at her sensei. But we do wish that you cut down on the porn. You know you won't ever get a girlfriend if you read those books. Kakashi sighed while Sakura and Sasuke snickered under their breath at the comment that Naruto had made. Leave it to their teammate to insult their sensei. Sakura and Sasuke will never admit that the comment was able to quench any fear that they have. Upon entering the classroom, Naruto was amazed at the sight in front of her. The number of shinobis was definitely impressive. There must be over 100 people in the room. A small scowl made its way on her face as she realized that this meant there were more competition. What's this? Sakura asked after she gotten over her shock. The blue-eyed girl sighed and answered quietly. There's too much competition, that's for certain. We'll need to plan carefully for the exams. We can't allow ourselves be outdone by them. Sakura hesitated and nodded. They seemed so strong. I presume they would be. Naruto agreed. Question is, who's the one that we should look out for the most? They all seem to be people that we should look out. Sakura said. Perhaps. Naruto agreed wearily. She suddenly stiffened when she felt a familiar chakra approaching towards their team. Why now? She didn't want to hear arguing and she certainly doesn't want to be used as a shield. Sasuke was a damn coward when it came to his fangirls. 1, 2, 3, Naruto thought as she went to stand beside Sakura. She was not going to allow herself become his shield. There was no way in hell that she will stand beside him when his more enthusiastic fangirls were nearby. It was like asking a death wish. Sakura was an exception. She was becoming tolerable when it came to Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, you are late. Ino yelled as she jumped onto Sasuke's back. Naruto chuckled at the sight of her friend looking at her for help. She tapped her finger thoughtfully, gazing at Ino and then to Sasuke. Was she feeling nice to help him with this? He did cause trouble. Then again, Ino can be quite a handful. I haven't seen you for a while, so I have been waiting in excitement. Ino said, smiling at Sasuke. Naruto laughed, causing the black-haired boy to scowl at her. She chuckled and decided for his sake that she will save him. Ino, get your hands off my teammate. Naruto said, smiling kindly at her. Why should I? Well, if you don't then I can always give Sasuke those pictures that. Ino flushed deep red and stuttered. What pictures? You know the pictures that you took of him with Alright. The platinum blonde immediately jumped off of Sasuke's back, causing the blonde to grin at him. He scowled and rubs the dust off before, giving her a curious glance. She shrugged her shoulders and mouthed to him that she will tell him later. Thank you for getting Ino pig off Sasuke-kun's back, Naruto. Sakura yelled, glaring at Ino. And haven't I told you to stay away from Sasuke-kun, Ino pig? Why if it isn't Sakura? Ino said, scowling at her ex-best friend. Big ugly forehead as usual. Don't you miss the old days, Sasuke? Naruto asked as she grinned at the sight of the two ex-best friends arguing. No matter how it looks, It always seemed so funny but pathetic that the two of them are fighting over him. Still, she was slightly disappointed in them. This was not the way a kunoichi should act. Are you guys taking this stupid test too? Don't die, Shikamaru said as he walked up to them alongside Choji, who was eating a bag of chips. Naruto could not remember a day when the Akamichi heir didn't have a bag of chips in his hand. You know your laziness is contagious, right? I think half of the time, your bad behavior rubbed off on me. Naruto said, grinning at him. But if it's so stupid to you, then why are you taking it? I thought tests like these are very troublesome. Troublesome women. I'm going to take a wild guess and say your mother nagged you into coming here. She asked. He nodded his head. Damn, I feel sorry for you. Your mom nags a lot, which makes me wonder how do you survive. I wonder too. Ino had also annoyed him to join the Chunin exams too. Choji supplied, offering her a chip. She grinned at him and took a chip. Apparently she heard it from Sakura, who told her that your team was going to be in it. I apologize for my teammate, Shikamaru, for being the cause of you being here. Naruto said sympathetically. I know it must be troublesome, but think of it like this, become a Chunin and your mom won't nag you that much. That will be a dream. Quote comma dot. Ugly forehead. Ino yelled. Ino pig. Naruto shook her head and said. Tell me, how do you survive, Ino? You don't know the half of it. Shikamaru said. I can guess. Naruto said, tilting her head at the arguing pair. Ino glared at them but it didn't faze them, all three of them were used to her glares. Naruto had to deal with those glares whenever she used to spend so much time with Sasuke. Those were the days. Only her, Sasuke and Hinata spending time together. Hinata and her will try to find new plans to hide Sasuke from his craze fangirls. What did you say, chubby? Ino yelled. Naruto clenched her hands into a fist but didn't do anything. I'd rather be chubby than some blind idiot that will get her teammates killed. Honestly, you never change. Always superficial and vain. You're never going to get far. It's because of this Sasuke will never look at you. Besides, I'm curvy not fat. At least, people like me unlike you. Ino yelled. And you're chubby, don't convince yourself otherwise. Naruto held Sasuke back, knowing her friend was going to lose his temper. Nobody knows it but her friend does have a bad temper. He does hide it better than anyone. It was times like these that she is reminded that even Sasuke can act rash and will foolishly cause too much trouble. He will always be rash but nowadays he is less rash. Listen to me, bitch. Naruto spat. Insult me one more time and I'll show you again why I always beat you in spars, also you know kunoichis that do diets are considered idiots. At least I know that I can get a boy. Ino spat. I don't give a damn about boys. Naruto retorted. I prefer to be a good kunoichi and not be boy crazy like you and the other fangirls, you're the reason why people look down on kunoichi. We're not boy crazy. Sakura and Ino yelled. The blonde girl chuckled and said, did I say you were? I simply said that I would rather be a good kunoichi than be boy crazy, I didn't say you guys were. I wonder what type of boy will like you. Sasuke looked at Naruto and sighed. His best friend had a calm face but he knows better than anyone that she was hurt and angry. He didn't know what to say to her. He wasn't good in conveying his emotions and he certainly doesn't know how to confess his feelings towards her. Yahoo! Found you! A rather loud voice yelled. Naruto's attention turned to an approaching Kiba Inuzuka, who was grinning. His teammates, Shino Aburame and Hinata Hyuga were close behind. Can you be any louder? Naruto asked, rubbing her forehead at them. You know damn well that your voice causes me headache. You've to forgive him, Naruto-chan. Hinata said, smiling apologetically. I've to, Naruto said, grinning at her friend. Especially since you got Naruto. Hinata squeaked, covering her friend's mouth from saying any more. I told you not to tell anyone. Why not? She retorted. You're going to talk about it, aren't you? The very least I should do is make it known. You look a lot nicer in that outfit. Kiba said, grinning at her. I'm glad to see that you decided to get rid of the orange. The blonde sighed at him and looked at Sasuke to see if he agreed. The black-haired boy reluctantly nodded his head and Naruto scowled. Did she really look that awful with that orange jumpsuit? It was so comfy and she honestly thought that it looked nice on her. Maybe, she should really get rid of that outfit. Then again, where can she buy new outfit? Her eyes widen in horror as she realized that she was acting like she cared about her clothes. I see, all 9 of this year's rookie genin are taking the exam. Kiba said, realizing that everyone was gathered here. He had been too distracted by the sight of Naruto's change of outfit. I wonder how far we will get, Sasuke-kun. You seem confident, Kiba. Sasuke said, smirking at the feral boy. Ino and Sakura were glaring at Kiba as the two boys were having their conversation. We did a lot of training so we won't lose to you. Kiba boasted, grinning at the raven-haired teen. Naruto shook her head at the two boys and wondered what was it with boys and their egos. If you can't beat me, then how the hell can you beat Sasuke? Naruto retorted. If you can beat me during the exams, then you can have a chance against Sasuke. Right, Kiba said. The day I see you beat my ass is the day hell freeze over. Then hell is going to freeze over. Naruto retorted. Because I can and will continue to beat you. The two of them grinned before the blonde scanned the room for familiar faces. She smiled at the sight of Lee and his teammates. It seemed like his teammates were Hinata's cousin and Tenten. Naruto's smile disappears and it was soon replaced with a frown. She might be fighting Cho's sister in the Chunin exam. The girl hates her. She blames her for her sister's death, which was really her fault. Can she really fight her? Yes. The very least she can do is fight against her, even if it will be painful. The question is, can she look her in the eyes? She shook her head and then returned back to scanning the room. Naruto felt her lips curl into a small frown when she saw the familiar sight of Gaara and his teammates. There was something about him that makes her feel like she has a connection with him. He also scares the crap out of her, especially with his cold eyes. They were the eyes of a killer. She must have been staring at him for a long time because the redhead boy turned his head and looked at her. They stare at each other, both of them daring each other to break away from the staring, but neither of them broke away. As she waited for him to stop staring, Naruto took her time, analyzing the boy that she had met a few weeks ago. He was kind of cute, especially with his eye color, but he was just too distant. Too much of a reminder of what she could be. He was so much like a reflection. A reflection that she is frightened of. She didn't want to end up like him. He threatened his own teammates. What kind of person does that? I am Kabuto. The white-haired Konoha genin with glasses and a set of purple clothes said, snapping her attention from Gaara. But instead of that, look behind you. Behind? Sakura asked as she turned her head to look at the genins behind them. The genins behind her looked ready to kill them. The pink-haired girl gulped and unconsciously went to stand beside Naruto. They look friendly, Naruto said sarcastically. Next thing we know, they will invite us for a bowl of ramen because they're that friendly. This isn't the time to be sarcastic, chubby. I rather prefer to be sarcastic, bitch. She retorted. I'm not scared of them, I've seen worse than this. Naruto never realized that Gaara hadn't once taken his eyes off her. Gaara looked at the blonde-haired girl that seemed to be having a heated argument with her friends and teammates about something. He didn't know why he always stared at her, and he certainly did not for certain about his obsession with her. She was pretty. Not the usual pretty, but the exotic kind if he thought about it. She was also brave and said that's for certain. A girl that always seemed to be smiling when she, herself just wants to cry. She was his opposite. She cared about her teammates, if what she asked would indicate. Isn't that a little bit harsh of you to say? Those words always seemed to run through his head along with her eyes. Her blue eyes seemed so innocent yet filled with anger as she asked him this question. Harsh. It wasn't harsh for him to say these things. He was definitely not going to lie to Kankuro about what he will do if he doesn't shut up. Does the girl even know what it was truly like to suffer all through your life? No, she only lost her friend. She didn't understand the pain that he went through. She didn't understand the turmoil. Still, why was he obsessed with her? It just made no sense. Gaara, is something wrong? Tamari asked hesitantly, noticing that her younger brother seemed to be out of space. Her brother never behaved that way in his life, and truthfully she was scared of this development. She sighed in relief when the redhead boy shook his head at her. He certainly wasn't going to tell his sister about this. Naruto yawned as she sat in the chair that she had been assigned. After the Sound Genin attacked Kabuto, their proctor had shown up and reprimanded them for fighting before the exams. He had also told them to come to the front and turn in their applications so that they could be assigned a seat number for the written part of the Chunin exams. She glanced at the paper and grimaced at the question. There's no way that she can pass this test. Only a genius can answer these questions. She was anything but a genius. Which leads to her current dilemma. How the hell was she going to pass this test? Cheating seems to be the only option for her. There are many important rules to this first test. Their protector at the front of the class said as he wrote on the board. I will write it on the board while I explain, but questions will not be allowed, so listen carefully. The first rule is that you guys will all start off with 10 points. The test is made up of 10 questions and each one is worth a point, but this test uses a subtraction system. I don't like the sound of this. Naruto thought wearily as the protector explained how the subtraction system works in this exam. She grimaced at the explanation, tapping her feet in annoyance. This system was truly a pain in the ass. She can't lose all of her points. She just can't. Losing them is not an option. The second rule, this is a team test. Whether you pass or not will be determined by the combined score of your teammates. Ibiki said, drawing Naruto's attention back to him. So each team will compete to see how many points they can hold on to form the initial team total of 30. The blonde didn't know whether to laugh or to cry in despair. On one hand, Kami seemed to hate her so much for this, while on the other hand she's screwed. If this had been a spar then she can pass this with no problem. But no, it has to be a written exam. This is the worst type of exam. Wait a second, Sakura yelled, interrupting Ibiki from continuing the rules of the exam. I don't understand this initial points system either, but why is it a team test? Naruto curled her lips. It was a curiosity. Why make it a team test, if only a few of them become Chunin? It is suspicious. Something was up. There was another meaning to this test than just writing. There has to be another or else, there's no sense. The third rule is that during the exam, anyone caught by the testing officers doing sneaky activities, namely cheating, Naruto frowned, wondering if it can get worse. Will have 2 points subtracted for every offense. There has to be a loophole in this. Naruto thought, leaning against her seat as she pondered over the rules. We will have our eyes on you guys, the Chunin in the sides informed them. Realize that the pathetic ones that get caught cheating will be destroying themselves. Ibiki continued, giving them a dark look. As shinobis trying to achieve the level of Chunin, be proud ninjas. I wonder if he knows that too much pride can get a person killed. Naruto thought as she scans the room. Her eyes linger on the calm redhead. There were still no emotions in his eyes. It was just like a calm sea, making her wonder what will happen if he gets angry. Will he really kill someone? Was he that heartless? The exam will last 1 hour. Okay, Ibiki said. He scanned the room to look at their faces and nodded at their petrified expressions. Begin, he yelled. Naruto immediately turned her face and looked blankly at the test paper. What can she do? Cheating was out. She doesn't have any jutsu that allow her to cheat without being seen. She rubbed her chin. This was really her dilemma. So what can she do? Nothing, that's what. Her jutsu has too much chance of her getting caught. If it had been teamwork then perhaps, she could do it. However, she doesn't have a jutsu that will allow her to connect with her teammate. This makes it very difficult for her to make a strategy. She really is screwed. Her eyes flickered towards the clock and she sighed. Only another 50 minutes to go before this stupid exam is over. She will place all her bets on the last question. With that thought, Naruto decided to catch up on well-deserved sleep. Ibiki stared at the genins in front of him and thought about this bunch of genins and the ones that stand out to him. The Suna boy definitely stands out for being very calm during the course of the first exam. He also stood out for watching their village pariah. Naruto Uzumaki was very different from what he had expected. He had expected the girl to panic at the very least, due to the questions. Instead, she was calm and was even sleeping during the exam. He wonders if she had been using any technique to gather the information. The blonde was also quite smart if what Kakashi's saying was true. He could see the reason why. The young girl was different from the rest of the girls in Konoha and, that's a good thing. He had watched all the genins as they entered the classroom. He observed their behaviors, particularly the girls. They always seemed to find new ways to cause trouble. Arguing about boys and other troublesome things. This girl didn't. She argued about boys, yes, but because the Uchiha heir wanted her to save him. She was quite reluctant, but she did it anyway. The girl cared about her teammate to do something she didn't want. Looking at the clock, Ibiki saw that it was time for him to ask the 10th and final question to the genins. It was going to be fun if he dare say so himself, but not so much for them. Okay, and now we will begin the 10th question. Ibiki said. Now, before we get to it, I would like to go over added rules for this questions. He kept his face calm at the sight of the shock looks from the genin's face. Only the Suna boy was not shocked, having a stoic expression at his words. The rest were simply gaping at him. These are the rules of desperation, Ibiki continued after the genins drank in the new piece of information. First, for the 10th question, you must decide whether to take it or not. What happens if we choose not to? A Suna girl asked immediately. If you choose not to, your points will be reduced to 0, you fail. Along with your teammates, Ibiki said. The looks on their faces just made his day, but the small frown on Naruto's face made him curious. What on earth was the girl thinking? Why won't we want to answer the question? It will be foolish of us not to answer the question. Naruto commented, frowning. What's so bad about the other option that will make us not want to answer it? Well, because of the other rule, Ibiki said, informing them. If you choose to take it and answer incorrectly, that person will lose the right to take the Chunin exam again. Naruto frown deepened at his announcement, and for a moment, she looked at him with suspicion and anger. It seemed like the girl was acting like the others. That's a good thing. Through her killing intent was not on par with a Chunin, but it was close to it. What kind of rule is that? The Inuzuka yelled. There are guys here who have taken the exam before. Ibiki gave them a dark look and said, you guys were unlucky. This year it is my rules. He then continued. But I am giving you a way out. Those that aren't confident can choose not to take it, and try again next year. Those that do not wish to take it, raise your hand. Once your number is confirmed, leave, Ibiki said. He watched for the next several minutes as the participants quit, one after another. To his surprise, he saw that the Hyuga heiress was raising her hands even though it was hesitant. He did not expect that to happen, and he definitely did not expect what was about to happen next. I'm not going to give up, you can bet your ass about that. She slapped the desk with a palm of her hand. It will take a lot more than that to make me give up. Because I'm not going to quit these exams. That's my Nindo way. Ibiki was taken back at her words and looked around the room. To his surprise, all the genins in the room was filled with determination at her words. Don't you wish to become one of the strongest kunoichi in this village? How are you going to achieve that if you don't become a Chunin? Chunin is just a rank. She said, grinning at him. It doesn't mean a thing. I can still be a genin but be the strongest kunoichi in this whole village. So, you can bet your scarred face that I will become the strongest kunoichi in this village. The scarred man looked around and saw that all the competitors were still determined. He sighed and realized that there was no point for him to drag it any longer. Good decision. Now to everyone still remaining, I congratulate you on passing the first test. Ibiki said. The blonde frowned, tapping her finger on the table. Her eyes were darting around the room. Ibiki noticed that her eyes seemed to linger on the red-haired Suna boy. That's interesting. From what Kakashi said, the girl has no interest in boys. Blind to know if a boy likes her as he tells the rest of the Junin. This was an interesting thing to see. What do you mean? The pink-haired girl asked, looking at him in shock. We already pass. What about the 10th question? Better question is why would you make us doubt ourselves? Naruto asked, fixing her gaze at him. What's the point of making us doubt about answering the 10th question? And as Sakura asked, what about the 10th question? There never was such a thing, or you could say that those two choices were the 10th question, Ibiki said. Those two choices were there as to see if you will do the right thing. Explain further. Naruto commented. I think I got the idea, but I'm not certain if my idea is right, so please explain. I will give all of you a scenario. Now about these two choices, say you guys become Chunins. Ibiki said. Your mission is to steal a secret document. The amount of ninjas, their abilities and etc. is unknown to you. And of course there could be traps set all around you. Now do you accept, or not accept? Because you don't want to die, because you don't want your comrades hurt, can you avoid this dangerous mission? The answer is no. I guess that makes sense. Naruto muttered. What were the first 9 questions for then? A blonde Suna Kunoichi asked. Were they pointless? She did not look very happy at the prospect of pointlessly taking an exam. No, they were not pointless. They served their intended purpose, Ibiki said, waving his hands at them. To test your individual information gathering ability, that purpose. Information gathering, the blonde Kunoichi repeated. First, as the rules explained, success on this test based on the whole team doing well. This put pressure on each member not to mess things up for their teammates. Ibiki said. But the questions on this test were not the types a mere genin could answer. Because of that, I am sure most of the people came to the same conclusion, that to score points, I will have to cheat. All the genins started to whisper at this, and after a couple of minutes Ibiki continued on with his explanation. Basically, the premise of this test is to cheat. As cheating targets, we had 2 or so Chunins who knew all the answers mixed into the crowd, to help you guys out. I didn't know a good way to gather the information. Naruto muttered under her breath. That part of the exam was completely pointless. Ibiki frowned and wondered what the girl did to complete the exam questions. Ibiki shook his head and continued. But those that cheat poorly, fail of course. He said as he removed his bandana. Because, at times, information is more important than life, and on missions in the battlefield, people risk their lives to get their hands on it. All the genins looked at him in horror when they saw the burns, screw holes and scars that covered his head. They all looked ready to puke at the sight. If the enemy or third party notices you, then there is no guarantee the info will be accurate. I want you to remember this. Important information in your hands can be a powerful weapon for your comrades and for the village. Ibiki said. So we had you gather information through cheating. This clearly separated those that didn't have the right abilities. Remember that no matter what the danger is, there are missions you can't avoid. The ability to be courageous, and survive any hardship, this is the ability needed to become a Chunin captain. Ibiki continued, and he soon began to become passionate. Those who can't put their destinies on the line, who cling to the uncertain future of, there's always next year, and then walk away from their chance, those pieces of trash who can only make such cowardly choices, they don't have the right to become Chunin. That is how I feel. Those who choose to take it answered the tough 10th question correctly. You will be able to survive any troubles you face in the future. Ibiki said, smiling at them. You made it through the entrance. The first test of the Chunin exam is now finished. I wish you guys luck. The moment that those words left Ibiki's words, a cannonball shot through one of the windows, shattering the window. The cannon unrolled in front of Ibiki to reveal a special Jonin standing in front of a banner that read, Anko Mitarashi, proctor of the second test. The special Jonin was wearing a tan trench coat, a tan skirt, shin guards, and a suit of ninja mesh. She had purple hair in a spiky ponytail and brown eyes that lacked pupils. Naruto blinked once she saw the woman and rubbed her nose. Great. They were going to deal with that perverted woman. Why her? Why was she always the one that seems to have weird people? You guys, this is no time to be celebrating. I am the proctor of the second test, Anko Mitarashi. Let's go now, she said. Follow me. You have bad timing, Ibiki commented. 75, Ibiki, you left 25 teams. Anko said. Your test was way too easy this time. There are a lot of outstanding ones this time, Ibiki said. That's fine, I'll at least cut them in half by the end of the second test, Anko said. Ah, I'm getting excited. I'll explain everything once we've changed places. Follow me. Naruto didn't like the smirk on the woman's face. In fact, she wonders if everyone in their village was crazy. The Hokage and Kakashi had a porn collection. Apparently, Sakura's mom is obsessed with cats, as her friend will tell her. Hinata's family was strange and Sasuke's brother killed his whole family. She will be happy to meet a sane person. She hopes that she won't become insane. Anko Mitarashi led the remaining candidates to a fenced-in forest with signs that warned them of danger plastered on the chain-linked fence. There was a booth right behind her when she stopped to face the examinees. Welcome to the stage for the second test, training ground number 44, also known as the Forest of Death, Anko said. You'll soon find out why it's called the Forest of Death. Is that supposed to scare me? She asked. I'll pass this test before you know it. The examiner smiled at her angelically and even Naruto found this unsettling. Yes, said Anko, still smiling, you're quite spirited, aren't you? She gave out a swift chuckle as she flicked her wrist downwards and a kunai came out, which she grabbed by the handle. The kunai flicked around so fast that in a small amount of time her movements became a blur, leaving the children watching in awe. And then with no warning at all, the small dagger-like weapon was thrown with deadly accuracy, just grazing Naruto's cheek and catching a strand of hair of another person standing behind Naruto, as it was intended. Naruto's eyes widened as she saw that Anko disappear suddenly and reappear behind her, holding her shoulders down painfully. She stiffened when she felt the examiner lick her wound and murmur something in her ear. Kids like you are killed so easily, she chuckled. Spraying that red blood I love. Suddenly, movement caught the examiner's eye. A kunai came flying at Anko and she deftly dodged the flying weapon easily. Naruto looked around to see the source of the flying weapon, while trying to get rid of Anko's hands. She traced the sand and her lips curled into a small frown when she saw that it was Gaara. Why would he do this? Don't touch her, he said, glaring at Anko. So, get your hands off her. She felt the painful weight on her shoulder lift and looked at Gaara with curiosity. Why would you do this? She asked herself, gazing at him. You seem to have no difficulties when it came to injuries, so how is this any different? He looked at her with boredom. She couldn't help but smile at him. He looked away from her but Naruto didn't miss the fact that he turned light red. This made her curious. First Sasuke, now this guy, what the hell is going on? Why were boys turning red at the sight of her? She sighed. Boys were just so confusing, that's for certain. Still, this boy was different from the others. He wasn't like Sasuke yet, she felt a connection with him that was similar to her friend. He seemed to be someone that she perhaps can relate to. He's different from everyone, that's for certain. Now, before we start the second test, there's something I have to pass out. You must sign these waivers, Anko said as she held up a stack of papers and walked to the front of the crowd. There will be deaths in this one, and if you don't sign these, then it will be all my responsibility. That snapped her from her thoughts. How the hell is she so laid back about Genin dying in this test? I'm going to explain the second test now. You can sign the waivers when I am done explaining it. Once you sign the waivers, each team will check in at the booth behind me. Simply put, you will attempt the ultimate survival test. First, I'll explain the area in which it will take place. There are 44 locked gates around the area. Almost all of the area is composed of forest with a tower in the center and a river that divides the forest in two, running underneath the tower. From any of the gates to the tower is a distance of approximately 6 miles. I wonder if there's a shortcut, Naruto thought, gazing at the forest in curiosity. During the survival test, you will be asked to complete a certain task using your weapons, tools, and jutsu. You will compete in a no-rules scroll battle. You will fight over these two scrolls, the Scroll of Heaven and the Scroll of Earth. 13 of the teams will start out with the Scroll of Heaven. 13 of the teams will start out with the Scroll of Earth. Your team must make it to the tower with both scrolls. There's a time limit too. The test will last exactly 5 days long. All of your survival needs are things that you will have to worry about. I'd recommend that you watch out for man-eating beasts, poisonous insects, and poisonous plants. 5 days. I can't survive 5 days with Sakura and Sasuke as my only companions. Naruto thought. This is going to be hell. I'll have to deal with a grunting teammate and a girl who can't survive in the forest. The possibility of 13 teams passing is very unlikely. As the days go on, the distance to the goal will become farther and the time to rest will become shorter. The area is crawling with enemies too, so you won't get much sleep. So not only will some fail by losing the scroll, but also some will die from the harshness of the course. Now I'll talk about what will disqualify you. First, those that don't make it to the tower with both scrolls within the time limit will be disqualified. Second, those who lose a teammate will be disqualified. As a rule, you will be in the forest for 5 days, so quitting in the middle is impossible. The final rule is that you must not look inside either scroll until you make it to the tower. A Chunin will be asked to handle classified information. This is to test your worthiness. That is it for the explanations. Exchange the 3 forms for your scroll. Then, choose a gate to get ready for the start. My parting advice to you is to try not to die, Anko said. With that, everyone began to sign their waivers and turn them in. The waivers were turned in behind a closed booth so that the other examinees could not see which teams got what scrolls and who actually carried the scroll. Once everyone had their scrolls, Anko said, follow a Chunin and go to your gates. We will start in 30 minutes. As they made their way to a gate, Sakura asked, do you have any idea on how to pass this exam, Naruto? Plenty, Naruto said, but, can I trust that you two can survive in there? Yes. You can be a spoiled brat at times, Sasuke. Naruto said. That's why I ask. The plan. Here's what we're going to do then, Naruto said before she began to explain. 30 minutes later, every team that was participating entered the Forest of Death. Naruto will always look back at that day that changed her life, for both the best and worse.